Good evening, and welcome to the June 27th meeting of the Emergency Services Council. May we please have a roll call?
Atherton. Belmont.
We are here. This is Warren Lieberman serving as the alternate family member.
Thank you. Brisbane.
Here.
Burlingame.
Here.
Colma.
Here.
Daly City. East Palo Alto. Foster City. Half Moon Bay. Hillsborough. Menlo Park. Millbrae.
Here.
Pacifica.
Here.
Portola Valley.
Here.
Redwood City.
Here.
San Bruno.
Here.
San Carlos.
Here.
San Mateo. South San Francisco. Woodside. County of San Mateo.
I believe we have 10. We're needing one more person, so we're going to head and continue on the agenda for everybody's time. And so we will go ahead and bypass the approval of the minutes, and we'd like to move into number 3, the operational error report from Captain Denton. Please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Craig Denton. I'm a captain with the Sheriff's Office, and I run the Homeland Security Office of Emergency Services. In front of you, you should have attachment A, and quarter number 4, the numbers have not fluctuated at all and are pretty much standardized as they usually are. Nothing has moved to the point where I think we need to address them. Do any of you have any questions regarding that, or can we move on past that? There's really doesn't seem to be anything that needs to be discussed.
Any questions from council to the captain?
None.
Proceed, please.
Okay, and then if I could, I'd like to make just a few announcements and introductions, if I might. If I could have Mona Vasilou stand, please. Mona is our newest OES district coordinator and comes to us from San Mateo Medical Center, where she worked as the emergency manager there for a year and a half. And she has previously worked for more than 2 decades in film and television production prior to that. So we will be using those specialized talents as she works for us in OES. So I'd like to welcome Mona to the team. Thank you, Mona. And then if I could have Jan Peterson please stand. And Jan Peterson is our newest district coordinator, and she is a 50% Redwood City CERT coordinator and 50% for San Mateo County to be a district coordinator and also work with us in CERT coordination. And she comes to us with many years of experience working for the Red Cross and has been deployed several times throughout our country during some disasters. And both government and community liaison, including 8 national deployments. Yes, and she's also a school teacher in a prior life. So we're happy to have her with us too, and everything that she brings to our division. So thank you for being here. My next announcement is that Steve Mahaley, stand up, Steve. Steve will be retiring from the Office of Emergency Services after 13 years. Steve previously worked in emergency management with Stanford for 6 years, and he spent 20 years in the United States Air Force as a firefighter. So thank you for your service. All right. And my final announcement is that I also am retiring next month.
Oh.
And so my last day will be July 19th, and Sheriff Bolanos has selected Captain Scott Kirkpatrick to take my place and run the division. So he will be here the next time you meet for the ESC Council, and he'll do a great job. He's a great person and has a lot of talent. So that being said, he'll be the next captain of this division.
Well, first, we want to welcome, obviously, Mona. And Jan, welcome. And we wish you the best. And, of course, we wish to Steve and Craig, congratulations, happy retirement, and we wish you all the fun in your future. And we kind of wish we were in your shoes, but we know that you'll keep in touch.
Thank you very
Anything
much.
from
Yes.
Jan?
Thank
Redwood
you.
City.
So I'm sad. Thank you for everything that you have done for this county and for this organization. I hope you have a great retirement. You will be missed. Big shoes to fill, but I'm sure our sheriff has found someone to replace you. And if not, you're coming back.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words.
City of Millbrae.
Again, thank you and congratulations to everybody joining us and retiring. Ms. Peterson, we're having our very first Get Ready event in the fall. It'll involve our CERT. Our first planning meeting will be July 11th at 1:30 at our temporary rec center. If you can join us, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Okay, you guys can connect offline. Anything else from the council? Daly City.
Hi, you keep looking this way, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. Captain, congratulations on your retirement, and thank you so much for your service. I've been there, and the only advice I can give you is take a year off, go somewhere, and it gets better. So congratulations, sir.
Thank you very much for the advice. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. On to new business?
No, we're going to go back. We do have, with Daly City's presence, we have a quorum. If, with council's permission, I'd like to move back to item 2, which is the approval of the minutes from the April 18th meeting.
Second.
There's a motion and second to approve the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
One abstention, not present.
Noted that,
Two not present.
okay, the City of Millbrae and the City of Brisbane abstain due to being absent.
Just for the record, when voting on the minutes, we're always voting just that we've accepted them.
You're
So
correct.
Obviously, you're always welcome to abstain, but there's no need to.
Thank you.
Colleague of Belmont, you are correct. Okay, there being, we'll move on. No old business, we'll move on to new business. Mr. Rose? And before, as Mr. Rose comes up to the podium, because this will be good timing, as most of you can look at our dais, you saw that we have a request to add an agenda item. And this is for a resolution that is required, and there is a timeline and deadline. This is something that all of our agencies have supported and asked, but I've also asked Mr. Rose if he can just give a little background for the record and for the recording.
Great, thank you, Medina, and good evening, honorable members. My name is Kevin Rose with the San Mateo County Office of Emergency Services, and thank you all very much, especially Councilman Kagrin, to make sure we have the quorum tonight, because this is very important. So, San Mateo County and all of its 20 cities, including some additional districts, have what's referred to as a federally approved, multi-jurisdictional local hazard mitigation plan. That's a lot of words and abbreviations to basically mean we are able and eligible to apply for and receive federal disaster dollars and mitigation plans, mitigation projects to assist our individual municipalities towards hardening our communities, towards more resiliency with regards to hazard mitigation. Mitigation, planning, response, recovery. Those are the big 4 pillars with regards to emergency management and response. What's going on right now is that basically in March of this year, we were notified by the California Office of Emergency Services because there was a federal presidential declaration for Butte County and Ventura County, state of California qualified for federal disaster funds. Now, of these funds, there were developed 4 tiers, in essence, of prioritization of these monies. First tier, of course, was the impacted counties. Second tier was for state agencies for statewide resilience. Third tier was for other projects from previous presidential declared disaster applications. And the fourth tier, the Hail Mary, essentially was any jurisdiction that has a federally approved local hazard mitigation plan. Fortunately, the county and the cities in the district back in 2016 were able to work together with contract dollars that the county was able to secure to develop this multi-hazard mitigation plan and get it approved by FEMA, which expires in 2021. So even though we were the 4th tier, the Hail Mary send, we are extremely fortunate that our Emergency Managers Association, comprised of all the cities, your emergency managers, as far as a separate group, put in an application for the next 5-year local hazard mitigation plan project dollars. That notice of intent application went forward, was approved. Staff attended a 2-day workshop end of May and early May from the state to basically learn more information about this grant, which has to be turned in by July 5th, next week. We may be driving this application up, no joke. So what we have done, and this is through a lot of work from Kathy Pape and from Steve Mahaley of just going forward on this application to make sure we meet the deadline. And all of the cities, thank you to your city managers and your support of already submitting the 20 commitment letters, including from the county, for this application. This federal application is a 75% Fed, 25% local match. The County of San Mateo has agreed to match, so there'll be no fiscal impact to the Emergency Services Council. What this measure is before you is because of the tight deadline, and we were unable to get on the Board of Supervisors agenda, we must have a resolution from a governing authority, Emergency Services Council, to approve and allow for the Captain of Homeland Security and the OES manager, and we do titles because sometimes people leave, in essence, so that this 3-year application, as it goes forward, that we can submit this application on your behalf. So that basically is the motion before everyone for full approval, 4/5 vote in order to do so, to get it on the agenda, and then everyone to approve it going forward.
So, thank you very much. So, I think it's all before you, and again, we do need a motion, a second, and we do need 4/5 of those here present in order to place it on the agenda as an emergency, urgency.
Motion to, second?
So there's a motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? You have unanimous
Great,
vote.
thank you so much
Where
for
we,
your discussion.
and we'll place it at the end of new business on item 6. Now we can go ahead and move on to new business item 1, state legislation, Cal OES tracking.
So out of deference and out of respect, actually, what I want to do is take the agenda out of order, have PG&E present on the public safety power shutoff, and then what I'll do is come up a little later to talk about the OES tracking, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
With council's permission, we'll go ahead and move on to item 2, PG&E Wildfire Safety Program, Public Safety Power Shutoff.
Hi, good evening. For the record, I'm Bill Chang, your PG&E Public Affairs Rep for all of San Mateo County. I want to thank the council and Mr. Rose for giving us the opportunity to be here tonight to answer any of your questions, or at least try to provide additional information regarding PG&E's plans to turn off power when the weather conditions are wrong, I should say. And so, we've been talking about this so-called PSPS, Public Safety Power Shutoff, for close to a year. We've spoken to every fire chief, every city manager, CCAG. We've spoken to the San Mateo County Emergency Managers Association twice, and we have established single points of contact in every city and every jurisdiction in the county in anticipation of this. And so Cal OES and San Mateo County OES are all fully aware, and so Kevin asked us to be here tonight to kind of give you a basic rundown of what the program is and what could trigger a public safety power shutoff, and to answer some of your questions. So before I kind of get into the triggering components, and you have the sheet in front of you that provides some basic information, are there any initial questions that I can try to answer first?
Any other questions? Redwood City.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. The outreach that you did it include schools and hospitals, or was that just a broad already included?
We sent out 5.8 million letters to every single electric customer in our service territory.
So my question, let me rephrase it. If you met with city managers and you met with did you meet with schools and hospital staff, or were they part of the team that you did meet with?
So two-tier answer. So they should have gotten if they're an electric customer, they got a letter.
Oh.
And we also met with, hey, Frank, what was the group, the healthcare providers? Yeah.
Thank you. That was my answer. Thank you.
Could you repeat the answer for the
Oh,
mic,
I'm sorry,
please?
Healthcare providers and hospital consortium.
Thank you. Other initial questions?
Can I just follow up to Janet's question?
Absolutely.
What about on the schools? Did you meet with any of the school districts or anything, or the county board of education or anything to look
The
at
schools
from that
have
end?
assigned account reps, and so I'm on the, call it the political side, and then there's the customer-facing side, and they've conducted their own full outreach on the customer level, whether large customers, small customers, commercial, school districts.
Any other City of Pacifica?
I think the biggest concern I heard was the fact that the time to turn it back on.
Yes.
After it's turned off, it could be very lengthy,
Yes.
that time period. Are they planning on trying to shorten that? Because that's the biggest concern I've heard.
It depends on the scope of. So let me answer that in a little bit. So let me go through the what could trigger this. And
Is that with your presentation, Mr. Chang?
yeah, really, it's just some basic information. So
Council's approval, why don't we let him go ahead with the presentation, may answer some of our questions?
yeah,
Mr. Chang, why don't
thank
you
you.
proceed?
It's weather driven. This is 100% weather driven. So as you can see on the sheet in front of you, there are 5 components that, when combined in the, I'm going to say wrong combination, could trigger the protocols for PG&E to begin considering shutting off the power to a particular geographic area. The first one being the National Weather Service issued red flag warnings, and it's not every red flag warning. National Weather Service tends to issue red flag warnings for all kinds of weather-related hazards, including lightning and tornadoes, which doesn't apply here. So you have a red flag warning from the National Weather Service combined with winds. I think it's forecast to be sustained 25 or higher, gusts 45 or higher, forecast over several days. Combine those two with 20% or below humidity levels, so very dry. Then you have a kind of a subjective observation of how much dry fuel is on the ground in a particular given geographic location, and then real-time on-the-ground monitoring. PG&E has installed weather stations throughout its service territory, and we have weather experts that we can send into an area to provide that real-time weather observation. So take all of those 5 things combined, and then it becomes a judgment call by experts, meteorologists, as well as wildfire behavior experts. And if they decide, then PG&E senior leadership makes the decision to begin the protocol of perhaps turning off the power in a particular location. Now, keep in mind, some of you might have seen CPUC created maps that show Tier 2 and Tier 3 fire risk areas for all of our service territory. San Mateo County, all of those areas are primarily west of Highway 280. Most of the area west of Highway 280 is Tier 2, with the higher extreme risk in the Tier 3 areas, and the Tier 3 areas are primarily centered on the hills east of Pacifica and in an area that is generally Woodside and Portola Valley. So when we look at the weather conditions, we're looking at not the weather conditions in Pacifica or Woodside, but we're looking at the weather conditions where our lines are. And for the areas that our lines are where there is weather risk, it's primarily that center spine of San Mateo County where the hills and the trees are, west of Highway 280 to the beach, and not quite directly to the water, but it kind of ends in the hills just east of town. So when we have those weather conditions in the unfortunate combination and the protocols are started, depending on how large or small the shutdown might be, City Pacifica, the answer is it could be a few hours, it could be a couple of days, just depending on, so let me back up. So our grid is very automated and very computerized. And when it's running, it can tell us where certain hazards have happened, when they happen, and where they are. And we send a crew out and they take care of it. When we turn the power off, it goes dumb. It can't tell us anything. So if a wind event has taken a wire down or put a pole down, it can't tell us that. And so in order to turn the power back on, we got to walk the line, go old school, boots on the ground, trucks, helicopters, to inspect every inch of the circuit we just turned off, to make sure that there's nothing wrong with it and we can turn it back on without any safety issues. So that, I hope that answers your questions of why it takes longer. It's easy to turn the switch off, but to make sure that the system is ready to be turned back on might take a little bit of time. So that's the components that will trigger the protocols. And when the protocols are triggered, many things begin happening simultaneously. Text messages, emails, phone calls go out immediately to all the affected customers, as well as the public agencies in the anticipated affected area. Could be the entire county, could be just a neighborhood. So it just depends on the weather and what the weather is affecting. News releases, social medias get blasted. The Cal OES and the county authorities of the affected areas also get notified immediately. Then a cadence of conference calls begin. We shoot for a 48-hour notice. But again, this being weather driven, it could be 36 hours, it could be 12 hours, it could be 10 hours notice, depending on how the weather is behaving. But we try for a 48-hour notice, cadence of conference calls begin, and the conference calls are really for the affected agencies to participate and get initial information. We also stand up a secure portal. All of your city managers have received a draft NDA from me, from PG&E, for them to take to your city attorneys to begin the process of submitting that NDA so that your agencies, your cities, especially your fire service, can access that secure portal if and when a PSPS is announced. What that portal provides is confidential information, including where the circuits are, and most importantly, maps of the area that the shutoff could happen. The conference calls will go on before, during, and after. And to your point, the restoration process is really where most folks have their concerns. How long is this going to last? What do I do? Where do I go? And things like that. And so knowing those questions, we also have plans to establish what we're calling customer resource centers, which we have 7 sites right now pre-identified up and down the peninsula. And they're essentially a large parking lot, usually a shopping center, maybe the San Mateo Event Center, Ceremony up in North County. It's a large parking lot. We show up with a rather large tent and facilities where folks can come get information, cool off, get some water, charge a phone, charge a laptop, and perhaps get some supplies for themselves and their pets. You cannot charge a car at these places. That's a whole different level of service. And these places are meant as resource centers, not long-term shelters. Where and when such a place might be stood up, again, is dependent on the length and scope of any kind of PSPS event. So that's the basic information, and I'm anticipating all kinds of questions.
City of Millbrae, and then Belmont.
Did I miss anything, guys?
Please
First
let
of
our
all-
colleague take her place.
Hi, Marie.
Okay, I'm fully in support of enacting these protocols. A couple of questions. CAL FIRE has considered Burlingame Hills and Hillsborough Hills and Unipacera County Park. Both are on either side of Millbrae, and we do butt up against 280 east of Pacifica. So to me, you keep the power off as long as you need to keep the power off. But are you also shutting the power off at our city hall, which is our cooling center? That would be my one concern. And then the second concern has to do with SFO.
If, excuse me, if and when a PSPS event is announced for a particular area, that area is 100%. It's dark.
Including City Hall, including all our emergency services operations
Correct.
are also dark.
Correct.
Okay, and if the airport goes dark, will you notify us? Because when the airport goes dark, traffic backs up into Millbrae.
One of the lessons we learned when we had to do this 3 weekends ago up north was we should also tell the adjacent
communities.
mainly because the adjacent communities have to be prepared for what you mentioned and also to render mutual aid.
Okay, and I would just remind you that especially in North County, I can't speak for South County, many of our homes are not air conditioned. We have a large senior population, a large population that doesn't speak English. So if this goes on for days, cooling centers become something that we didn't have to think about, but now we do.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Got a 2-part question. Given that this is a new policy, new procedures, I'm guessing that we're all kind of walking into this not quite sure what to expect. Don't know really how frequently any of these shutoffs may occur. We're going to find out as we go forward. Is that more or less correct?
We do anticipate. Well, I hate to give a number, but yes, you are correct.
The answer is just yes. We don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, and it is counterintuitive for the power company to begin shutting off the power.
And I would further suspect that if we do have these shutoffs, which are going to be, let's call it the the potential costs, if you don't do it and you guess wrong, are pretty severe. And if you do it, it's probably pretty severe as well. What plans, if any, does PG&E have to, let's say, either underground or otherwise redesign the grid so that it's a lot safer than it is now, so these kinds of turnoffs may not be necessary? What's in the plans?
So that's the longer term vision. My name is Darren Klein. I'm the manager for the Bay Area for public affairs. I work with Bill and those kinds of things. When it comes to what we're doing in the future, those are plans that we are putting together now through system hardening, and we are putting together those plans. Right now, PSPS deals with the direct threat. The direct threat right now, what's happening this summer, next summer, if you were to underground right now, it would take several years to underground a lot of stuff. So what we are doing is we are sending people to check all of our circuits. We just checked 99% of all of our circuits to ensure that they're safe, everything above ground. And we are looking to the future as to what we should do with those systems. Everything is a balance. We work with CalISO on our transmission systems. So if they're undergrounded, we work with CalISO to come to a conclusion when it comes to that. And when it comes to distribution systems, we work with everyone as we look at those systems and judge what is safe, what is not safe. We will underground where appropriate.
Great. So can you help this board visualize 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what might and how much might be different than where we are today? In other words, I'd like to get a sense of what the long range is. Are we talking 40, 50 years before we see much? Are we seeing 5 years before we see much? What's that look like?
It all comes down to what is invested in the system with working with the state. Right now, we are in bankruptcy, so we are working with the state and creditors and everybody else to see what the financial situation is and everything else. I cannot predict what it will look like in the future. What I can tell you is that we have an immediate need right now through the PSPS, which we're talking about today, and then looking at undergrounding things in the future. We do all of those things working in concert with the CPUC. I cannot tell you what would be undergrounded, what would be considered a priority or not a priority right now.
So
Do I think all the lines are going to be undergrounded in 50 years? I don't know. It depends. But I think what you will see in 50 years from now is a much safer electrical system, because we will be looking at things differently because of the effects of climate change and other things that have changed the environment here. And I don't think we can keep putting in the kind of electrical circuits that we have right now. In the future, you'll see something different.
Great, thank you. Would you anticipate that in the next 5 to 10 years we'll see much difference?
Oh, I think you'll see difference, yeah.
Let me add, I like examples. I see my friend Jeff here from Foster City. Foster City is 100% distribution undergrounded. They have no poles. But Foster City has transmission towers. So even a city like Foster City that is 100% distribution level undergrounded, PSPS could still affect Foster City, because the lines that feed those underground lines in Foster City might be overhead somewhere else, and that somewhere else might be affected by weather, and that somewhere else could also be transmission level lines. So
we have what's called, we refer to it as a donut hole problem, where you have transmission lines coming down from water hydro assets, those kinds of things across long parts of the country where you can't physically underground. So it's those kinds of things that end up affecting us here.
Okay, thank you.
City of Burlingame.
I just have two questions. The first is in regard to the consumer resource centers. So I assume that you would be texting them people in that district area that the center is open, so they do know where to go.
Oh, if and when these centers open, it'll be all over social media, next door, you name it.
And then the second question is, power being off a few hours versus a few days is a huge difference. So how often do you think you would be updating residents in regards to that timeline?
It depends on what's going on with the weather. One of the biggest drivers when you look at these things is the humidity level. If we end up in a situation where the humidity level stays very low, that's one of the big high fire threats. So looking at the things that Bill had talked about earlier, those 5 or 6 things that kind of orchestrate to figure out what happens. What we plan on doing is informing people as we go along as to, is it going to be another day? Is it going to be another 12 hours, 36 hours, et cetera? We have been meeting with all of the emergency offices and meeting with a lot of folks so that we can start to figure out, do they have generation? Do they not have generation? Is it reliable? Is it not reliable? And we had our first PSPS event of the season up in Butte County and in Napa County, and some counties adjacent. And so we've learned a lot of lessons from that. We've learned where we communicate. We are communicating, sometimes communication doesn't work. We've found some of the gaps in that. We have something that's called Send Word Now, so that we know that not only are auto calls going out, but there's emails going out, there's texts going out, and we're constantly revising all of that stuff. So we also look at things like our medical baseline customers, and we make sure to have their contact information updated so that we can also contact them and stay in contact with them. And we work with the county health departments if there's other things to be added to that medical baseline. The reason that I bring that up specifically at this point is the NDA that Bill was referring to. All of your cities have connections to maps. That's not a problem. We do need an NDA, though, to share the medical baseline information because the state of California has a lot of privacy laws and a lot of new ones coming in. So we're getting a special NDAs out to the counties and cities to get that signed so we can share that information.
Great, thank you.
City of Redwood City, then Portola Valley, please.
Thank you. So, Bill, I'll go back to you for a moment. With all of the dissemination of information, texts, emails, however, how many languages is that going out in?
I've seen it in English, Spanish, Chinese, Vietnamese, especially in San Jose, it's Vietnamese, and I think I saw Korean. Yeah.
And then maybe Tagalog. Okay.
Is it in Tagalog?
Well, yes, it will be.
Thank you.
It is not currently.
Yeah, my question's regarding the likelihood of shutdowns. Has PG&E considered an exercise going back 5 or 10 years and looking at the periods that might have been shut down in the past, given your algorithms that you're using to decide when to shut things down, so that we might get an idea about if it's going to happen 1 time a year maybe, or 5 times a year? I know that averages are kind of a thing of the past for the weather nowadays, but...
That's the problem. They're a thing of the past. We have gone back and looked at those things, and when you look at the drought situation and how much humidity plays in this, that's probably one of the biggest things I've learned, because moving all over our territory, humidity levels vary, feels like 100 feet, and a humidity level will be different. That's why we're setting up over 450 weather stations throughout our territory, because their microclimates have been an issue. So when you look back and you say, well, how many of these can I predict? And you look at those situations in the past, I would say in the last 4 years, we found that a lot of the extreme weather events have gone up dramatically. So when we look in the past, if I were to tell you based on the past, a few times, but based on a couple of years ago, it would be a lot. So instead of saying averages, we just have to we have to let everyone know that it could happen. Unfortunately,
it seems like might be useful information anyway. I mean,
no, I'm saying we went through all of that information, but you can't build a predictable model.
Right.
So we just have to say the weather would be going out. Going forward, you're going to see that things are different. The climate is different. We're going to be dealing with the difference.
Thanks.
Town of Hillsborough, and then Brisbane. Maria, I'm sorry. Is your mic? Your mic might not be on.
Is it on? Okay. For the PSPS, if residents are concerned about the long-term power shutdown, and they're interested in installing generators, is that going to be impacting your plans of the power shutdown, or is it? What is your plan or comments on the installing the generators?
Thank you for that reminder. So the generator topic has come up several times. So there's really 3 kinds of generators. There's the little Honda generator that you put gas in and you put it outside your house or your tent or your cabin, and it runs and it provides electricity as long as it has gas in it. There's the so-called camp generator, which is really a battery that you charge either through your car or at home before you leave to go camping. It's really just a battery, not a generator. And then you have your permanent mounted on a pad generator hooked up to your panel. Depending on your residence or your business needs, you can consider any of those. Our only suggestion on the permanent kind of generator that's hooked up to your panel is that please make sure that that's installed by a licensed professional, because if you can imagine, grid goes down, generator kicks in, there's no electricity flowing to your home or business from PG&E, and your generator is on, but your generator is just connected, and it's feeding electricity back down the line, and a PG&E crewman is working on the line. Somebody just got hurt because the generator wasn't installed properly. So that's our only suggestion, is if you go the permanent route, the diesel generator, which is basically a truck engine, please make sure that it's installed by a licensed professional.
Thank you.
Quick question. Are you making this available electronically so we can distribute it to our residents?
So if you go to pge.com,
Yeah.
the wildfire information is wide and deep.
Okay. Wildfire safety. Thank you.
And I think what's being asked too is if this flyer, so that we can have a reference that can be sent out to also each member of the board that we've been given tonight, please.
Sure, I can send it out.
Other questions, my colleagues? Anything else, gentlemen?
Thank you.
Thank you both for being here.
let me-
Thank you for updating us. I think what you're hearing from my colleagues in the council is obviously the concern, as started with Pacifica, was about the time and the unknown. When folks don't know, and the communication needs to be often and doing the best you can with the uncertain. But nobody likes uncertainty, and communication is key.
Absolutely. Let me close by the comment that I was very, very heartened to hear Kevin mention that the plans that you have that qualify for federal funds, you guys are well ahead of some other jurisdictions. That you have emergency plans that are true and valid, and so that's a very good thing. You actually have plans that you can implement. Some counties, some cities, nope. So thank you.
Again, thank you very much both for being here. We're going to, as Mr. Rose had asked us to move to item 1, which is the state legislation, Cal OES tracking.
Sure. Handouts that are coming to you right now. I'll make this fairly brief. This is from the last meeting, actually. Supervisor Canepa had expressed interest. There's been a couple bills that have surfaced in the last year or two that we've brought before your committee as far as impacts to emergency management. What I did do is go to our California Office of Emergency Services. This is more of an internal dialogue that they have. They can't advocate for bills, but what they do is provide this type of information. So this is a lot that they break down into various categories that I'm just sharing with you as far as something that I'll work with Supervisor Canepa to really highlight maybe just a couple bills to inform and update you quarterly at these meetings. And if it does seem of something of interest and purpose, we'll continue to do so. A couple items to share that have surfaced that Supervisor Canepa did want to mention. Senate Bill 160, this is a bill, Senator Hannah Beth Jackson, she's the one with regards to that alert or warning bill that passed about entering into MOUs that still continues to expand not only just interaction with utilities, but also to include other utility providers and not just counties, but cities and counties that can enter into these agreements as well. So hopeful that that gets passed. Another bill to share with you, interestingly enough, regarding air quality. And something that surfaced in this board meeting as well, where a lot of questions you had during the November air quality issues about Cal OSHA as it surfaced and your employees and workers that may have to have been outside, park rangers, public works, health department. We have public health nurses that go through this. So there is a bill, Assembly Bill 1124, that actually is going to be addressing this, that is going to try to create within Cal OSHA a certain particulate level that employers must make available proper respirators for employees that must go outside. So I'd like to say that the state heard us from here. I'm sure it surfaced elsewhere, but I still will say the state heard it from us here. So that's all I really have with regards to the legislation piece.
Any questions from council?
Are those listed on this sheet? We keep flipping through them.
They are, and I'm sorry, it's a bevy of information. SB 60, I think, is like on the third or fourth
I
page.
just want to highlight it, okay.
Sure, and what I can do is within the minutes just mention those two bills and even email that out to you.
Thank you.
City of Millbrae.
I'm sorry, I missed, was the 160, was that a Senate bill or an Assembly bill?
Senate bill.
Senate Bill 160.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anything else? Then why don't we go ahead and move on to item 3, since you're there, OES calendar. Oh. Switching up? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. So the one thing I wanted to speak of, the largest exercise that we have coming up is that through State Homeland Security grant that I put in for a couple of years ago, that we've been planning to do a countywide exercise at Mills High School in Millbrae from July 29th to August 2nd. And this is going to be an active shooter exercise with the coordination being law enforcement, fire, the Board of Education, and public safety communications. And the emphasis on it is going to be obviously what law enforcement does, which is going in an active shooter and finding the objective target and ending the event, working with the fire department in what we call a rescue task force, which is where the fire department now will team up with law enforcement officers as fast as they arrive to accompany in, so law enforcement provides security for the firefighters so they can go in faster, and the medics can provide medical attention, and we can evacuate the wounded as fast as we can. So that's new and things that we need to work on and coordinate. And then there will be a component of working as a unified command. So in the unified command, in the command post, what we need to practice all the time with law and fire, we do this quite frequently. But what we're going to do is, because it's an active shooter at a high school, and like we've seen throughout the country, there's many incidences where we have to, unfortunately, practice these things so that we can be efficient. And that is that within that unified command, we're going to be training many members of the Board of Education and having them within that command post and showing them what we do in terms of incident command and our decision making, and the decision making that they have to start thinking about while this event is going on, whether it's something as simple as getting access to all the buildings upon the premises, or doing the child reunification, which is an enormous task that has to start immediately. In addition to that is messaging. How do we message the community? How do we message the parents? How are we speaking to the teachers that are still in the campus, that are in lockdown, if they're still in there? And then the final component will be public information officers. We have been working with not only law enforcement and fire from many of your communities and your jurisdictions, but also with your public information officers to try to make sure that they understand how to set up a JIC, and so that everyone is working together, all the PIOs are working together to make sure that we have a standard message that's not only going out to the community, the parents, but also messaging that's going out for the media and social media and all those things. So in essence, to control the message within our county so that everybody knows what's going on. And as you said, the unknown, the communication needs to come hard and fast, and so that everybody feels comfortable as much as you possibly can in a situation like that. So those are the things that we're going to be working on. Again, it's a week long. We are going to, the first 2 days, we're going to be working out and doing what we do, but there's going to be kinks. So we are going to be asking and sending out invitations to all of you and many other elected officials to come out on the third day. And we will have VIP areas where you can stand and observe what we're going to be doing, how we do it. It will be very realistic. There will be victims and volunteers that will be moulaged up with wounds so that the firefighters have to go in, assess, and do what they have to do, as well as we will be using blanks in weapons so that it's loud. We're going to try to make it as chaotic as possible. So those that are participating are getting real-time training. We have maxed out with the fire department, and law enforcement, I think, has about 15 open spots left. So law enforcement was 250 is what we were expecting. We have, last time I checked, over 80 teachers that are going to be coming up there that we're going to put in classrooms so they can witness what happens and understand what it means to lock down and go through what is taught through the Board of Education and the Big Five and what to do. So they'll get that exposure. And really, to be honest with you, as you all know, that when it comes to working or reacting and surviving these types of events, real-time training is what gets you at least more used to what's going on, so that the Rolodex in your head, when it starts spinning and you're trying to find reference on what to do when the emergencies happen, you've at least been there somewhere before and you feel a bit more calm and you're better at your decision making. So that's what we will be doing during those dates, July 29th through August 2nd. You will all be getting invites. We hope to see you there. I think that everybody will get a lot out of this. And we're not going to spend all the money this year, which is fantastic. All your jurisdictions have experts in law and fire, and they've all been great partners to coordinate with on this. Didn't have to go out and get a contractor because we got all the talent we need right here in this county. And so we saved money, and so we've saved enough money to do it again next year at another location, a different scenario, whatever it may be. The new thing is terrorism in high rises, active shooter in high rises. How do you do those types of things? So these are problems we'll have to practice, work out the kinks. But as I've always said, we have a lot of talent in this county, a lot of coordination, and law, fire, and all of the first responders in this county get along better than almost any county there is in the state of California. So we should be proud, and we're very lucky.
City of Millbrae.
First of all, thank you for coming to Millbrae. We were a test zone a few years ago for an earthquake. For this board, you know that we actually did have an active shooter incident where our high school, our middle school, and our elementary schools were locked down. It turned out to be a knife, and the student wasn't on campus, so all good. I'm only bringing that up because our residents are somewhat energized. On top of that, the school district is planning or talking about putting housing on there. So whatever happens at Mills right now is being heavily watched by the community. So please keep us informed. Second part of that is a lot of our CERTs. Do you want CERT volunteers to help play victims? Have you put that call out?
Yes, so we have asked for many volunteers, and we are, my fire liaison that works in OES, Bill Eichner, is reaching out to many CERT teams to see if they want to participate. We were trying to get teenagers, upper teenagers, 17, 18, 19.
I can help you with that with our several youth groups. I can go out to them right away.
But not too young, because we don't want anybody being
Right.
triggered.
And when we were the host of the last drill, that was the earthquake drill, we did have CERT members from Redwood City. We were very jealous because they've got great uniforms. We had, I can't remember, we had at least three different CERT groups. So please tell your CERTs to join us.
Well, we certainly, we appreciate all the support that we've gotten. Again, the folks that I've worked with on this have been fantastic and super smart people. And so now the final thing that we are doing that needs to be rounded out is the volunteers. So any and all support, any and all help would be, very much appreciated. And I will let Bill Eichner know. I know that he was putting it out to CERTs just a few days ago, so it could already be out there and the numbers could already be swelling. So, that's where we're at. I just want to let everybody know that we're doing this. We are active and we're training as hard as we can.
Other questions? Redwood City.
So I think our CERT coordinator just got put on notice, so thank you. I saw you taking notes back there.
Yes.
So that's good.
Questions? Town of Hillsborough.
Thank you so much. Most recently, I think that on 2020, there is actually a segment regarding the active shooters and the drills, and it's realistic as you're planning to do. There was a conversation regarding the importance of teaching or utilizing the tourniquet to save people's life.
Yes.
So would that be part of your drill in terms of, I mean, not from the, to be incorporated, because I imagine that the active shooting scenes are as realistic as they can be, and then there's the implementations of the tourniquets as to when needed.
Yes. Tourniquets are going to be used in this exercise, and tourniquets are also becoming pretty much like the standard, but in law enforcement and fire. Many law enforcement agencies are now purchasing tourniquet kits that officers can carry on their belt for just such emergencies.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, in the city of San Bruno, we actually had gone through this exercise at City Hall on Friday night, junior high school Parkside, as well as Cappuccino on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And when you do get your invites, I would very much encourage. I did go to the second day, not the third day, maybe that's better strategy, of it, but to witness it and watch it and to see it is an experience. And for my community who has had that scenario as well, it is something that you have to prepare for. It's not fun to think of, but we have to be prepared. And I would say the collaboration between fire and police, that is something that is unique. It's having the command together working in sync so that you can take care of the perpetrator, the assailant, and then go back in with backup from law enforcement to fire. So to see that in action, if you are available, I think that I would encourage you, and I think you would find it very valuable. Yeah. Redwood City.
So yes, Redwood City actually several years ago participated in one at our elementary school, and I was fortunate enough to play a wounded, dead person. And just if you're going to have humor in anything that day, it was not humorous. It was very serious. It was very well conducted. We did have youth. We did have teachers. But laying on the ground there with all that moulage stuff on me and the ants were crawling all over me, I couldn't move. There was a reality to it, a real reality. And everybody actually thought I was dead because they knew the ants were crawling on me and I wasn't moving. But our police and fire did an amazing job. And it was not a fun time when you hear those loud simulators going off and they're simulating gunshots. So it was real.
I have no other questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Are you going back to the calendar, or?
One more item to speak. I'll be very brief. I know it's.
And what I'm going to ask the council is some of the colleagues have other engagements at 6:30. So I'm going to ask from there to move on to approving the application for the resolution.
Oh, okay.
So if we can go to that next after you're done with this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's night number 2 of the debates. We got to get going back to watch. Just quickly, as I've mentioned before, November 7th, the Emergency Operations Center functional exercise. This is our new regional operations center we're going to be testing out. Had our very first planning meeting this week, already have 11, and now as of today, thank you, Chief Cresta, 12 cities of the 20 on board, and we'll be gathering more, and it's going to be more of an educational light functional exercise, the county and all of its cities. The reason doing is that normally the Bay Area UWASI has large exercises, functional exercise that we participate in. This is a tabletop year for them and a 2-year endeavor. So we've agreed, because of your interest, to continue the momentum to have this EOC exercise. September meeting will have a lot more detailed information.
Okay. And then did you want to say anything else on the next action item for the resolution and for the application, or no? We're
No,
good
just,
to go?
yeah, to devote and.
Okay. Folks, I'd like to take up item 6, and so unless there's any discussion from the council, if there could be a motion and.
Yeah.
Sure, second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go ahead and approve the application, the resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. It's unanimous, ayes have it. Is there a hazmat update?
Even got a picture up there. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jeff Thorne with the San Mateo Consolidated Fire Department. I'm also the director of the San Mateo County Hazmat Team. Just giving you an update what we kind of did for the past quarter. Been kind of busy for us. We had several calls for service. One of the calls you guys might be familiar with is the call we had in San Carlos, kind of made national news. It's pretty much an event that involves some radioactive material that we found in the city of San Carlos. Relatively minor, really minor incident, but it did last 2 days, and it had the partnership of about a dozen different agencies involved. In the essence, it was a gentleman that had a rather unique hobby, is what it was. But once we found this stuff, we had to figure out to get rid of it. We can't just leave sources you can buy commonly over the internet. We can't just leave them out on the street or in the person's house, especially when the house is being sold. So how do we get rid of these things? Well, it involved agencies from the hazmat team, Redwood City Fire Department, environmental health from both the local to state level, also the FBI, the sheriff's office, bomb squad, you name it, pretty much everybody was there. And we tried to keep it quiet too, but it didn't work very well, judging by how much we were on the news with it. But again, it turned out extremely well, and this kind of shows about the partnership we have in this county that doesn't matter where we come from, we work together extremely well. So it's actually nice seeing it come together, because these are type of events that we don't run a lot of. Our last one we had something like this was probably about 12 years ago, because again, we just don't have them around here. So when we do have them, it's nice to know we can still come together and accomplish the goal on it over a couple days. Also, through the past couple months, we've been doing a lot of training. We brought in 3 new members for our hazmat team. They're going through training right now. We also sent members of our team to the International Hazmat Conference in Baltimore, Maryland last week. Again, it's a big conference, the biggest one in the nation, where we get education, experience, and plus to see what other teams are doing that we can bring it back here. Because by no means do we think we're experts, our way is the only way. There's also a better way of building a better mousetrap, so to speak. So we're kind of using them to see how we can make our team better being out here. Some of the things we're also working on, we're also rewriting all our department's policies and procedures of how our team operates, so we can maintain compliance with the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, and also through the big one, through the state legal requirements, Title 19. So we're writing all those, especially with our new agency. We are also going through a typing process through OES, because they recognize our team as a certain type of level response since we are a state resource. We originally got typed as a Type 2 team several years ago, and this is our recertification process to make sure we still meet the standards, and we actually exceed their standards, which is actually pretty good. And then finally we got right here is we're just working on the transition with the new agency, with San Mateo Consolidated, bringing more members from the former San Mateo Fire Department and the former Foster City Fire Department and Belmont together to work together on this team together, so we provide a better service to the county. So, here, have any questions for anybody?
Any questions?
Oh, yes, sir.
Belmont, please.
More a comment than a question.
Sure.
Thank you. For the past for more than the last decade, I've had the lucky privilege of working fairly closely with the hazmat team as well as the fire department, of which you're a member of. And I just want to make sure you can convey my appreciation to the team for the fine work that they do. It's really been an outstanding organization. I think we have one of the best hazmat teams in the country.
That is correct. We've been operating our hazmat team since 1986. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Not? Okay, we'll move on to thank you very much. Emergency Managers Association update.
Members of the board, I'm Captain Pat Halloran with Belmont Police. I'm on the Emergency Managers Association board, and President Anderson could not be here tonight, so I'm taking his place. And I will be brief because I know we're under a time constraint. As you know, the Emergency Managers Association is a professional association. It's non-governmental. It's made up of all of your emergency managers, along with emergency managers from utilities and some private companies like Genentech and other large companies. We've been very busy. As Kevin mentioned, we were able to apply for a grant, which we received, although because it's a governmental grant, we can't administer it, so it's being administered by OES. So we're working in great partnership with OES. A couple of other things that we've done recently is our current local hazard mitigation plan. We recognized a funding gap to finish out the 5-year period. There was a funding gap with the contractor that's administering the grant for us. And being a private organization, we're able to pivot faster than government. And the association provided funds to close that funding gap so that we could continue the current local hazard plan uninterrupted because of how important it was to all the members. Also, we have begun working on the PSPS. Our planning working group met yesterday. Obviously, it's a very important topic for emergency managers, and our focus is going to be on getting resources available to all the emergency managers in the county so that we also have consistent response and a coordinated messaging along with PG&E so that we're all playing off the same sheet of music. And we've also been reaching out to our colleagues in other counties, specifically Sonoma, who recently went through a PSPS to find out what went right, what went wrong, and what policies and procedures are they developing so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So we're hoping to try and stay ahead of this as much as possible so that we can mitigate any kind of negative effects. So that's our update. If you have any questions.
Any questions from council? Okay, if not, thank you very much. We'll move on to the American Red Cross update.
Hi, I'm Rita Ewing. I'm the new disaster program manager for the Red Cross. In the last quarter, we've responded to 9 disasters, 9 fires. In total, we've served 50 clients, 39 adults, and 11 children. Red Cross averages about 90 minutes in response times, but I'm proud to say that in the last quarter, we've averaged about 50 minutes per call, so that's excellent news. And we are at the end of our fiscal year as of the end of this month. So, with that to report, through our various programs in community disaster education and compression-only CPR, we have served 4,645 people, and 408 homes have had fire alarms installed, totaling 1,255 smoke alarms, and 808 people total have been made safer. And that is that. Any questions?
Questions from my colleagues? Thank you very much for the report. Let's move on to announcements. Any announcements?
Just one comment I want to make. We recently had, in the last weekend, I guess 2 weeks ago, we did a fire evacuation drill in the hillside for part of our community. And if it's appropriate, I'd love to suggest that we maybe have the chief come next meeting, maybe give a report on how that went. And we're looking to do a larger one coming up later in the summer as well.
Would you like to see that? If we could have that added, please, to the next meeting in September. Any other announcements? I know a suggestion was made as we began the meeting was about potentially sending out texts, I won't call it an alert, but a reminder to the council just to remind them the day before sometimes of these meetings. Obviously, we all have schedules. As you can see, we're bouncing between meetings. And so would that be something the council would like to see done and have arranged? If we could have that looked into, please. And
configuring a SMC alert group for this would be an easy task and can definitely be in place before the next meeting.
Well, let's have that done. Thank you. Are there any other announcements? Is there any public comment? No. Seeing none. Our next meeting, the admin committee meeting, will be September the 12th, and the Emergency Services Council meeting will be September the 19th. Everybody enjoy your evening and drive home safe.